What is up, fellow sickos? I am Dan Valley coming at you with the one, the only, the certified fantabulous Mr. Grant Hughes. The offseason look-ahead train continues after a brief respite for finals basketball / the Orlando Magic and the Memphis Grizzlies just going insane during said finals. We're on to the Portland Trailblazers, who the not so secretly stacked anymore Portland Trailblazers. Grant, do you remember that video we recorded last offseason? They called us madmen. Only
Just
for us to just be right, like always.
Doing some aggressive back patting over here. We got it. We did it. Hey, look at us. We did it. We were right.
I honestly dislocated my shoulder twice, patting myself on the back so often.
Worth it.
So my question to kind of start off here, Grant, before we dig into their cap sheet, could the Blazers just be the NBA's biggest wild card of the offseason? And they don't have, my justification is this. No, they're not. They don't have a Kevin Durant or a Giannis to trade. But they've already shown that as a team that's quote-unquote rebuilding, they're not afraid to give up future draft equity. They did that with Denny Avdia last year. They were a top 5 defense and played 500 basketball for basically half of the season last year. And then the other thing that I don't think is being talked about enough, at least not, where we exist on the national level, Joe Cronin and Chauncey Billups got extensions, so that implies security. But with the franchise up for sale, could there just be pressure to get better so that it increases the price tag or the appeal of this franchise? And so when you have all of that in one hand, and then the knowledge that they just have all these kind of movable contracts or good salary matching stuff, they have first-round picks, so the commitment to Chicago is a little awkward. We'll get into that. Do you think that there's a chance that this is like a team that could – I think we're in for the most craziest offseason ever, some people are saying. Is this a team that's sort of built to shock and surprise this summer?
I think it is because the core question is very much, for me, is very much related to everything you just talked about and their whole like wild card status. It's like, what as an organization do you make of that closing run where the defense looked great? I think depending on where you cut it off, it's like they were 23-18 or something like that down the stretch, or there was a stretch in the closing run that was slightly better than 500, but and it was critically fueled by the young guys. Like they were playing the younger players. It wasn't like Jeremy Grant led this charge down. So like, what do you take from that as Portland? And then how does that inform your plans? And I think the answer for me right now is I don't know, because Portland is like the king of was that real? Like the March, April run? Like it's Jalen Green has the crown for that, but it's like Anfernee Simons has done it. Scoot has kind of done it now. They've had these runs against teams that are like quitting or whatever. So it's just like, this is a very Portland thing to be talking about. And so maybe they should be very on guard and to make sure they don't like overestimate what this closing run means. But the fact that it happened and the fact that it was the young guys fueling it, I think puts everything we're going to talk about on the table, whether that's salary dumps, whether that's extensions for some of these young guys, whether it's consolidation trades, like it's just all kind of there. So the Blazers are weirdly like a centerpiece offensive team, except I don't know like what types of deals they're even interested in at this point.
I want them to just be like the Giannis team. Like
Wouldn't
that
be
would
fun?
just be, that'd be so fun. Let's get in. Do you want to take us through their just sort of off-season vitals, as we like to call them around here?
Yeah, so they've got about 11.8, just call it 12 million under the tax.
No, Grant.
Okay, I'll be more precise going forward. 17.8 million beneath the first apron. That includes the cap hold they have for what will be the number 11 pick in the 2025 draft. They can use most of the 14.1, the full mid-level, without entering the tax. So their draft pick situation, a little complicated. They've got a lottery protected first owed to Chicago, but they can trade. This is the important thing to remember as we're trying to put stuff together. Up to 4 first rounders this summer. They have those swap rights with the Bucks from 28 through 2030, essentially. So fairly asset rich pick wise. We'll talk about some of the contracts that they can move. There's quite a few. There's some expirings that are interesting of varying size, depending on how big of a deal you're looking at. So decent financial position, decent flexibility, good pick equity. This is all just like the snowball rolling down the transaction hill, I guess, right? Like they got to do something.
Right. And I would agree. And I think what is kind of the place to start is to look at some of the contract decisions of their own that they have to make to like, do you make these extensions? Are these players keepers? Because do you need to include them in certain trades? What is the view of them? I'm going to preamble this by saying we are not covering the extension eligibility of DeAndre Ayton, Robert Williams III, or Matisse Thybulle. Like, that's just, if you're extending any one of those, I love, I'm RW3 pilled, but that dude needs to stay on the court before I'm talking about an extension. I think the most important one would be Shaedon Sharpe. He is extension eligible. Now, this is just for reference. I'm not making any predictions. His 4-year max would be $190.5 million. His 5-year max would be $246.7 million. They could include language that would bump that up to 296, like the All NBA special. Grant, how much is he worth to you, and like what is the number that is? I don't know if it's your walk away point or you're pouncing at it, however you want to frame it. Of just, should we just wait for restricted free agency to see, one, how he's doing, two, how the Blazers themselves are doing, and also we know that we just haven't seen restricted free agency offer sheets just offered in high volume. So you can either let the market set his rate and match, or just know that you maintain flexibility and you could just sign him then.
So I think if there's an extension offer that Portland is willing to make, it's probably one that Sharpe wouldn't accept. And I think that's because if it's me, I'm looking at the Jalen Green extension and I'm saying it's got to be like 75% of that tops, just because they have, just like from 10,000 feet, similar player types, and you have less information about Sharpe because he played 32 games 2 years ago and and has not been like a locked in full-time starter basically ever. So, I mean, he started 52 of 72 last year. So you have, last year is age 21 season. Like it's got to be restricted free agency. So if it's like, we'll do a Jalen Green example, 2 + 1, $80 million. Like, he's not taking that. I don't think. I would be shocked. So I think the Blazers would be right to just kind of acknowledge we need more information, especially if we think we're going to be like a little bit more competitive. What does Shaedon Sharpe look like in year 4 on a team that is going to need him to defend and need him to be a better 3-point shooter and need him to be a better playmaker, like all that stuff? I mean, there's a world where the numbers you've got up here, 4 for 190, seems beyond insane right now, but like maybe he has a great 4th year and it matters to the Blazers and the Blazers are good, and it's like both sides are happy with that. So I think restricted free agency is the way to go, which is anticlimactic because we're talking about his extension eligibility right now.
Yeah, and I guess I'd just be curious, like, what is just because he's, like you said, played 32 games a season ago, he hasn't had like the cleanest, the dude can score, and the type, we all know about the above the rim stuff, but the types of shots he's able to get off and sometimes makes are insane. And then when you also watch him, he can make those tough shots, but you don't feel like he ever is going to need to dominate the ball. So I'm just like, I don't know. Like, does he get, what did Jalen Suggs get? That was too low, 5 years and 150. So Jalen Green got 3 years and 100.
For 100, yeah.
So like, would you go 4 for 130? Like, does that get him to sign? No.
Well, okay, he might sign that. I'm not offering that if I'm Portland. No way. I'm way under 100. Like, I'm way under. If I'm doing 3 years and maybe I want a team, like I'm lowballing, honestly, if I'm Portland, because I don't think he's shown enough. I'm not saying he won't, but just at the moment right now, you can't treat him like, oh, he's absolutely a core piece. I would be curious what Portland fans would say to that. Like, there's probably some percentage that are like, oh yeah, you lock him up for whatever you can. But I think most Portland fans would say, like, there are at least enough questions here to where it would be nice to have another year of information.
I agree that I'd wait for restricted free agency. I do think 4 years and 120 would, if I'm Portland, probably gets me thinking. I'm not gonna lie. So
Sharpe should take that.
Another extension eligible candidate, Toumani Camara, and he's fascinating just because as a second round pick, there's some different options they can use. He's eligible starting, I think it's like July 20th or something, 4 years and $89.2 million. That extension would kick in during 2027, 2028, I believe. And so, but you could also go the route of, he has those like 2 cheap years. So it's like, do you let him play out this season, then decline his team option next summer, let him enter restricted free agency where you would have matching rights, and then sort of just pay him then?
I think you've got to, can we start with, if you're Portland, would you just offer 4 for 89? Like, is he worth that? Maybe is the better question. Would you be willing to pay 4 for 89 for a guy that just kind of looks like he's a 37% 3-point shooter as an all defense guy that can guard everybody. Is that a fair market value?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I kind of think so too.
I would probably
now it's
just
a question
offer
of timing. It's a question of timing. And do you want to have another cheap year if you can? Do you? I think if you don't do anything now, the move is absolutely to just game it so he becomes a restricted free agent after this season, and then you just maybe you might get him cheaper because who knows what the market is gonna offer for a play. He's never gonna be a 20-point guy, right? Like he's
Correct.
never gonna be a more than like a what option on offense, fourth maybe, and like he might just be an elite 3-and-D with emphasis on the defense. So those guys get paid, but I it's very difficult to gauge what kind of offers he might command as a restricted free agent. I would be willing to find out if I were Portland.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, do you think he would sign for an 89? He would, right?
I think he would have to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's already 20. This season coming up will be his age 25 season. So like the clock, he's you might want to, and he's only had second round money so far. So like that first big payday, that's the life changer. You probably want to jump at that if you're him.
I think the most the riskiest scenario would be, well, we just want him like cost controlled for the next 2 years,
Right.
and so we're just gonna let this float until he's actually a free agent. Would be that'd be interesting.
I'm not doing that. I will not let him get to unrestricted free agency.
The final extension eligible candidate we're going to talk about, and I actually think he's more interesting following the Desmond Bane trade. You want to talk some Anfernee Simons, Grant?
Yeah, he is extension eligible because if you blink like everybody is, which is the most bizarre thing, it's always shocking who's extension eligible. He can sign for a starting salary on a max deal of up to $37.8 million. He's been the guy we've all been trying to trade forever.
To Orlando specifically.
To Orlando specifically. So that's off the table. So I guess you just max him and say, like, well, we can't, maybe he'll be part of the reason he was, in addition to the skill set, was that like his deal was movable. What was it, 25 a year basically? So I should have it in front of me.
Yeah, I think next season he's on the books for, because I believe it was upscaling. He's on the books for 27.8.
27.7. So coming off so he'll be 26. I just like he is a weirdly hard player to evaluate. Just because.
Would you just the same money if it was 4 for 100 again? Is that where you're up? Like, would you?
I'd do that. I would do that again. I think I might be a little offended if I were him, just because it's like I'm now entering my prime, and or I guess he's probably already entered it. But the next deal will take him through his prime basically, and with the cap going up, you're basically you're offering him a pay cut. Which he's done, he's just Anfernee Simons has been Anfernee Simons this whole time.
Okay, 4 for 104, so it's $26 million a year.
I would offer that. I think he's movable at that number is really the main reason. I still don't. Well, what do you think? Do you think Simons is someone that Portland should view as like a key piece with having Scoot on the roster and you have Shaedon Sharpe that you've got to think about? Is he still someone that's like more than a third guard? A year or two from now.
I don't know. And because I don't know, I think I lean towards keeping him, because right now, who is the player that has the combination of on and off ball gravity that he does as a shooter? There's nobody else on this roster that does that. Mm-hmm. And I think also he's in the final year of his deal. I bet you get a first round pick for him. If you want to get more than that, you're probably looking at like you're taking on a KCP type deal, nothing like too toxic, but it's not a contract you're chomping at the bit to have on your books. Wouldn't he be, unless the extension's outrageous, where it's like $40 million a year or something, isn't there a case to be made that he would be more valuable to you as a trade asset as well if he's on a longer contract?
Well, yeah, for sure, because otherwise he's a rental, and that those guys just don't return the same value. I think, too, I think I'm with you if I'm hearing what you're saying, like, you extend him to preserve the asset, like we like to say, and like make, that's a big number that not big, but like a big enough number that you could use in a trade, and he's more valuable if he's got more years on the deal. Is there a case to be made that with a Portland team that presumably is going to have Donovan Clingan playing more and maybe being like one of those elite defensive anchors in the middle that has a lot of minutes going to guys like Camara and Avdia, and maybe Tybalt plays a lot more? A player like Simons, whose weaknesses are on defense, like and whose strengths on offense are really badly needed on a roster like this, he might. Is there value like in he's a piece that we need around because of what he does and because of how we can hide his deficiencies.
I think unless Shaedon Sharpe and Scoot, I think you throw in here to take like more leaps as offensive players, I honestly think like that's the call right now, because you could even say, well, until they acquire somebody who does what Simons does at a higher level, and well, it's not just that, like you need more than like one like dead eye shooter on this team, and you just don't really like, yeah, there are guys that hit them at a high enough clip, but no one is being guarded the way that Anfernee Simons would do. And so ideally you want two of those guys. And when you look at the roster, if you had a bet on anyone who's there turning into that, like that wasn't even Scoot's profile coming into the league when everyone was highest on him. So Shaedon Sharpe is probably your next best bet there. I think you're onto something to where it's, all right, he's not an untouchable member of the core. I don't even know if the Blazers have any truly untouchable players, to be honest. Toumani Camara because of the value, but like if we're getting down to I don't know that they have any untouchable players. But I look at this and say, if they're not trying to tank, like they need Anfernee Simons because he does stuff that nobody else on this team has shown they can do consistently. And it's like, I know his percentages can wax and wane. The way he's guarded is just fundamentally different than a lot of other players on this team.
Very true. And this is a specific example of what we talked about up front of like, if you said if they are not going to tank, like I don't think they're tanking, and that means that they sort of believe that their close to the season was real. And if that's true and you want to be as good or better, Simon sort of needs to still be there.
Hey, you're just like teeing us up with great segues here. So, look, well, I think the biggest question is, so what do you think they will do or should do this offseason when it comes to the transaction market? I would call them, I think you boil it down to, are you just looking to maybe cut off some of the veteran salary so that you can open up even more minutes for maybe some inbound youngsters or flyers that you take? Or are you being more, let's not say aggressive buyers, but opportunistic buyers to where it's like the Denny Avdia situation? Is that what it's not, oh, it falls into our lap. They actively sought out that situation. So it was opportunistic, but it was like an aggressive opportunism, but they're not the team that they need to go give up 4 first-round picks for Kevin Durant right now.
No, I don't think so. And really, if you look at like the way that their roster is structured and the payroll looks, it's like they are kind of more like they've got that massive what's Ayton making 35 in the last year of his deal, and you've got Simons, if they don't extend him, that's at 27 in the last year of his deal. The Robert Williams 13, like they've got all these numbers that it's like you should package these up and send them somewhere with a couple picks and you could go really big game hunt if you wanted to. I don't feel like that's the move for them. So like, just to keep it boring, sorry, like what they need is shooting, and it could come at any position. And if you can unjam the center position so that Klingon is he's our guy. And then we have just at least not all three of Duop Reith and Ayton and Robert Williams in the mix there. Like if you can unclog that, you can add some shooting. They were 26th in 3-point percentage last year. They're mid-pack in attempts per 100. So they're getting them up. Like their process is okay. The results have been bad. Get shooting, ditch at least one of the bigs, and then like kind of see what you have. That would kind of be my like 3-step plan for the Blazers offseason.
Is there like an ideal archetype of player that you would want to see on this roster if they do decide that we're trying to be like really firmly in the play-in mix next year?
I mean, I think you can skew like pretty offense heavy / offense only because I like their front court defensively. So like,
which is such a luxury, by the way. Like if you're keeping Avdia, Camara, and Klingon, just as an example, like there's just a ton of options that you can go after at the trade market.
So like, a Malik Beasley type, a Buddy Hield type, a Corey Kispert type. Like these are all different. Some of these are trades, some of these are signings, whatever. Those types of guys where it's like, yeah, we're giving back a little bit defensively, but we can accommodate that. Like those would be the types of players I'd target. Just someone who's going to get threes up and make threes and keep the floor space, especially if Klingon's your big and it doesn't look like he's going to like tap into any kind of spacing game. And who knows if Camara and Avdia will be reliable 3-point shooters. Just someone that's really going to stretch the defense out. So you do have, just kind of offsetting the strengths and weaknesses by adding like legit, like scary shooting, I think would be the first thing I'd go for. And
they might be like even a Grayson Allen if Phoenix is looking to cut money at some point. But I do wonder, I think there's room, and there better be like a mandate to like put more on his shoulders next year in Scoot Henderson. But they could also kind of use like another, like, Sharp or Avdia or like as your secondary creator type, Simons as well. There might be room for like more of a true floor general to come off, like assuming Scoot is just going to be the full-time starter. There's probably room for like a floor general type to come off the bench, but I think you hit it on the head for me, which is like, let's just surround all, like, you look at the paint touches that you can get from Avdia and Scoot. Like, you just want to surround those guys with shooting. And if you also want to maximize, like, Donovan Clingan has issues enough catching the ball and finishing, open up that space for him even more. Like, you need shooting around these guys.
Yeah, and if you do, I mean, like, it's on the West Coast, so maybe Chris Paul would be interested. Like, just someone like that. One of the Joneses. I'm never going to refer to Tyus or Trey. I'll just say one of them. Someone like that. I mean, if Clingan can't catch the ball, I think Chris Paul is one guy that would put it in the spots where he'd have the best odds at it. I've just thought of Chris Paul right now. I'm not like, this is the guy, but that if you're not just going shooting, I think you're right. I think it is someone that can help the shooters you do have get cleaner looks, help the bigs that you do have, finish as well as their skills allow them to.
Should this be a Klay Thompson team if Dallas looks to trade him, or is that contract just not
No, I don't think that contract is like crippling. Someone like that's whatever Klay Thompson still is, he's treated the same way by defenses.
I do think there are two obvious names. They're free agents. I think they'd fall in like mid-level territory. Trey Mann, if he's healthy, some on-ball shake, and then, of course, the off-ball shooting. And Ty Jerome. This would be a good Ty Jerome. Can you imagine him like within this defense? Those are the types of moves I would support, by the way, where it's, if they have to trade a first-round pick, sure. But like if you're getting into like multiple first-round pick territory, I need to know like what's the name that they're getting back as part of this. Because I think one of the most dangerous things you can do is like fast-track things too much, like over-accelerate after having what you view as a promising season.
Right. I agree. You still should have like just the healthiest little bit of hesitation in trusting the second half last year. I think you can't act as if like just the arrow is angling up and there's no question about it. You don't know that yet.
You know what would be really interesting? And they could almost just take them in without having to send out money by using exceptions. But like if they were giving Boston a first round pick and Boston's like, okay, here's Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser. And I was like,
I'm all over that if I'm Portland. Like there's both your needs addressed in two players. That's perfect.
We just made the Blazers a championship contender.
Peyton Pritchard out of Oregon, Dan. I know you follow college basketball, but that would be
I
nice.
obviously knew that, and that is not the first time I'm hearing this at all. So shout out to me. Who's the most likely player to be traded on this roster, do you think? There's like 7 candidates for this, I think.
Yeah, and you can like let's go through them. Ayton expiring 35, Jeremy Grant, that's the guy that if you're Portland, that's the guy you probably would like to trade. He's got 2 more guaranteed at 32 and 34 and then a $36 million player option. Is he likely to? Maybe it's just Robert Williams. The number's right. It's $13 million. He's at a position that they have a glut of players at. So I guess I'll just say Robert Williams, but I'm wondering if I'm overlooking somebody.
They need to free Duop Reith if they're not going to clear up some big man playing time, though. That would be my stip. Honestly, I don't know if I would be able to. I want every team that basically needs a big to trade for RW3 because I'm so RW3 pilled. But then if I'm the Blazers, it's, would you rather like hold out hope for lightning in a bottle than get 2 seconds? You're not getting a first round pick for him, right? Unless you're taking back like obscene salary.
Yeah, but you're also not. I mean, Ayton's an interesting case. Maybe there's some situation out there that just wants that expiring deal, but I think you're paying to get off of Ayton and Grant, right? Like maybe I think so. I think you're giving up assets on the way out to move those guys.
With Ayton, the payment might be we're taking back money that extends past this year, maybe. I'm just going to go with Matisse Thybulle because his number's squarely in the middle, and so a team might not want Matisse Thybulle, but it's going to be an expiring contract when he picks up the player option. And like the Blazers, because of the salary situation they're in, $12 million allows them to take back almost like a $20 million player. So if that's a route they want to go and attach something to him, and that feels like kind of right up their alley. Like I said before, it's sort of like Matisse Thybulle to Boston and like a first round pick for Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser. Look, there, you're done, and Boston saves some money. But I'll just go with that. This is a tough team to read in kind of I would say an exciting way because it feels like anything just might be on the table under all the circumstances.
Yeah, I think that's right.
You have anything else on the Blazers, or are you ready to take us out of here, sir?
I'm ready to take us out here. Look at us just being time efficient on Portland. We hit everything.
For us,
thanks.
anyway. I'm sure some people
Right.
are like, why wasn't this 12 minutes long?
How is this a 25-minute podcast? Thanks, everybody, for listening, for watching. Make sure that wherever you're consuming this, you rate, review, subscribe, give us a thumbs up on YouTube, leave us a comment there as well. Join our Discord. The links for that are in the YouTube and podcast description. Tell your friends, tell your enemies. Shouts, Frank Ntilikina. Apologies, Jared Allen.